What up, RDP community? Matt Schifferly here, along with my buddy Grinder, who's just back from his tryouts for Blue Man Group, but apparently they have a height restriction or requirement. I know, totally BS. But we've got some great things that we wanted to present to you today, which are 10 points for evidence-based research on what the best training guidelines are for helping you build muscle. Now, full disclosure, these 10 points are not my own information. This is coming off of an Instagram post by one of the folks that I follow, Brett Contreras1 over on Instagram. Highly recommend you check this guy out. Lots of great evidence-based research information. And he posted these 10 points in a single tile. But I'm thinking, this deserves way more than just one thing that people are going to scroll through because they're too lazy to read it. Instead, I wanted to present it here in two-part series video, 5 today and 5 tomorrow, and discussing how it applies to you and your grind style calisthenics training. So without further ado, let's get into it. So point number 1 is frequency. How often should you be working a particular muscle group? A lot of the evidence is pointing towards that twice a week seems to be the sweet spot in many cases. I sometimes find 2, maybe 3 times is a sweet spot depending on your ability to recover, but usually anything more than that may be just overkill or slow down your recovery process, which can actually impede your overall muscle growth. When it comes to volume, quite a bit of a range, but it's fairly general of 10 to 20 total work sets per muscle group per week. That's not per workout now. And that may seem like it may be a bit much, but it actually adds up very quickly. Let's say, for example, you have a workout that you do twice a week for your back, which includes some sort of pull-up variations and some sort of row variations. So you have 3 working sets of each over 2 workouts. That's 6 total per workout that you're working your back and your biceps. That's 12 per week. So having just 2 exercises you do twice a week for 3 working sets already fills in that 10 to 20 rep range. Point number 3 is about effort. How hard should you be pushing during these work sets? Well, the evidence is strongly suggesting that you should really push yourself to a pretty high level of what I call high fatigue. You don't necessarily need to go to muscular failure in order to do it, but pretty darn close. So if you're doing, say, for example, a set of an exercise that you can do 10 reps on and you start at 5 or 6, maybe not enough effort in order to really stimulate as much growth as you want. But if you can only do 10 reps and you stop it at like 8 or 9, now you're getting closer to the ballpark. Point number 4 concerns the load. Should it be heavy? Should it be light? Well, a lot of the evidence-based research these days is showing that a wide range of loads can be very sufficient at building muscle, provided again that you push yourself to a very high level of effort with each set. But there's disadvantages to both high and low. Heavy loads can be kind of hard on the body, rough on the joints, maybe aggravating some injuries. Plus, you have to have better technique in order to keep yourself safe. Lighter loads can be maybe a little bit easier on the body, but they can be very exhausting. They can be quite limiting as far as your cardiovascular and mental stamina goes, and they can be nauseating at times as well. That's why usually that recommendation of the mid-range of like 8 to 12 repetitions tends to be still the go-to rep range for a lot of individuals. Not that that's the best way to build muscle, but just because it's usually where people find that they can push themselves the most without other limiting factors getting into the way. And the final point for today's video is exercise selection. Basically, multi-joint versus single joint exercises or isolated movements. Basically, we're looking at everything can build muscle as long as it's pushing a muscle to a high state of fatigue. Whether it's compound movements or quote-unquote isolation movements, they both can work very well. Naturally, compound movements can create a little bit more coordination, arguably having some functional carryover into things like sport or functional training. But the single joint stuff can be very good for shoring up little areas or correcting some sort of muscle imbalances, which is very common with things like physical therapy. I'll be talking about order of exercises in tomorrow's video, which is another point of exercise and evidence-based research for maximizing muscle growth and hypertrophy. Questions down below. Don't forget, subscribe here if you like these videos. And I got more stuff here as well as possibly part 2 down here as well. Till then, be fit, live free.